and I am going to get pizza. Oh shit. Bet. Thanks. You can talk. Okay, bet. Alright, where was I? So, in general, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I really enjoyed Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, and I wanted to talk about it because I think it's a really fun game. I think it is a video game-ass video game, in a way where the way Armored Core 6 works out is, for those of you who don't know, it is big-ass robots fighting big-ass robots. The Armored Core, which is what your mech is called, is essentially just an exosuit. Think of it, if you've never heard of mech type stuff, it's like an exosuit that an augmented human can live in, not live in, but an augmented human can be in, that allows them to have 4 artillery howitzers on their body at the same time. But yeah, the armored cores are huge. In the gameplay, it's not really, you don't feel it until you're up against the building, and you can see all the little holes that are windows, and you're like, shit, I'm tall. And even though, in theory, you think just a bunch of robots fighting each other, robots are robots, right? But that's not what makes mechs so goddamn cool. Mechs and things like Gurren Lagann, for instance, there is a big suspension of disbelief when it comes to how these things work. For example, physics-wise, I don't think anybody understands how a big machine can move quickly and effortlessly like this. But that doesn't matter. In the game, you're not playing to think about it. You're just playing to blow shit up. The plot of Armored Core 6 is, and this is for the uninitiated, because I am uninitiated, I have no damn clue anything about the other 5 games. But this game, the way it works out is essentially you smuggle yourself on the planet. You go through this really cool cutscene of essentially shooting yourself onto the planet with the opposite of, you know how in when they have rockets launch off, they have multiple little pods that come off, like the but the this fueling thing comes off, and this fueling things come off, and by the time the rocket gets up to the atmosphere, it's like a 10th of the size. In this game, they do the opposite, where as you're falling down, half of that thing doesn't even matter. It's there so that when planetary artillery air defense system or whatever sees you coming in, essentially half that thing's a decoy to get shot at, and the other half is you. And you sneak in, you have to find like a valid mercenary license thing. So you search through a couple, you find one called Raven, boom, that's your name, Raven. Very simple, straight to the point, right? Then you have the characters. By the way, not a single damn human in this game. That doesn't mean like everyone's aliens or anything. For instance, the Rubiconians. I think they're just humans who are one with the planet, kind of thing. I don't know. But you meet a very interesting cast of characters. Everything from, you have a person who's kind of like your boss, called Handler Walter, and he refers to you as a dog constantly. You're very much not meant to have self-thought. But as you're playing the game, Walter constantly is like, hey, you're doing good, man. The way Handler Walter communicates to you is essentially very minute positive reinforcements that you don't think about, and you don't really care about them. But for instance, after completing the first chapter, he gives you a task of rest, which is like kind of nice. He is, up until that point, it's like 6 missions in a row of like, fight this, fight this, fight this, go to this guy, go to this guy. I just checked my camera, sorry. All of that type of shit, right? But after you end up fighting this huge mech called a Strider, he gives you effectively leave and just says, I gotta go deal with business. You rest up. So you spend that time to listen to a voice inside your head named Ayer, and Ayer is ungodly cool. Oh my god. Ire is so interesting. Ire is a sentient power source. What does that mean? I don't know really, but essentially everybody is going for this planet Rubicon because there is this MacGuffin power source called coral. TLDR, the way it works is that coral is something found in the atmosphere. Kind of think of it as like if we can make energy out of carbon and we would just take it from the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, right? Like that kind of thing. Essentially, it's limitless. That's a great thing. Anyways, the way coral works is the Rubiconians have like a neural link to the coral, and Ire is a part of the coral that has sentience and can speak to or from certain things. So this whole time you have Handler Walter trying to find the source of the coral. Meanwhile, she's confused why she has sentience. That whole MacGuffin is essentially the whole point of the game. You're trying to find the coral. You're trying to find the coral. You're trying to find the coral. Once you hit like chapter 4 or 5, coral is found and that happens. But how do we get there? We get there by investigating an old coral repository. It blows up in our face. Ire is fused into our brain, and now we have a little mind thingy. We have a voice in our head, so we're not crazy. Keep in mind this whole time you're a mercenary, right? So as you're being a mercenary, you are getting contracts out from other people. For instance, when you first play through the game, the multiple factions that you can speak to and deal with, essentially all these companies are scheming against each other to attempt to overthrow the Rubiconians and get the coral for their own personal uses. Then you have the Rubiconians who are attempting to use MTs and ACs to fight back in like a guerrilla warfare type thing. Then you have another group of Rubiconians who are called Reuse and Development. And Reuse and Development is able to reuse and develop a lot of the things that were left behind during the Fires of Ibis. What's the Fires of Ibis? Great question. The Fires of Ibis is essentially all the coral got supercharged at one point and went kabooshki. And that's why everybody has been kind of taking a backseat to the entire idea of going back to Rubicon for the coral. However, now that there's more coral readings, people are starting to go and check stuff out. The Rubiconians really don't want them there, and if someone doesn't want you somewhere, that just obviously means you go there more, right? So you get into this whole back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You get a contract from the corporation, Balaam, and they're like, hey, go go fuck up these guys. And then you get a contract from the Archibus group, who's like Balaam's rival, and they're like, nah, and they're like, hey, some random mercenary came here and fucked us up. Do you want to go and fight those Balaam guys? And that just happens like 6 times. There's a very odd honor among thieves type of mentality going on throughout the whole series. For example, I forgot about this, but you can once you hire up with I believe it's the Red Guns with Balaam, you get the option, you get kind of like a private transmission from the Rubiconians saying, hey, if you take those guys out, we'll love you forever. So yeah, you can do that. There's more in the cast of characters as well that are just so interesting. I keep going back to the characters, but it's such an interesting thing that they managed to pull off, where they have these characters that they don't have faces. I don't even remember what half their mechs look like, but they're interesting. I think they're able to show off the characters in an amazing way. For example, there's this group of people called the Red Guns who work for one of the corporations, and while you're working with them, they give you the title of Gun 13, which your handler just keeps it to Raven. He doesn't like Gun 13. He thinks it's stupid. Gun 13, haha, unlucky number, just opened up. The person that you are speaking to, though, with the Red Guns, I think they thought about what a cliche drill instructor sounds like in most of like the Vietnam era movies, and they just put that into the guy. He's amazing. G1 Michigan is one of my favorite characters in the game. From telling you to start a sewing club so you can stitch your mouth shut, to making the request that one of the characters has to crunch some numbers because so and so isn't worth half of this person, which isn't worth a quarter of this person. You're not doing anything. Make math. Like, that's just kind of how a lot of the game goes behind it.
Attack! Get in there, you maggots!
Looks like Archibald sent some clown on a suicide mission. Cute, real cute.
The only clown around here is you, Kennebec. You're talking about the wall climber, the worm killer, the only Gun 13 has managed to live this long. Until the Liger Tail deploys, the odds are not in your favor. You better keep the emergency eject primed.
Second wave incoming.
Yeah. I heard that Merc took down Gun 5 at Guasu.
Iguazu? Oh yeah, the deserter who pissed his pants and ran.
Oh, but hey, I'd forgotten we still kept you around. Iguazu's worth 100 of you, which means, Albany, the Merc is worth 20 AM. You're doing nothing productive. Why don't you do the math for us?
The answer is 2,000 Albany, sir!
Shut your stinko and start shooting!
Sir, yes, sir!
So you get these little moments of brevity where you're just kind of giggling. On top of that, there's another group of fighters that work for the corporations called the Vespers. They're also, instead of like G1, G2, G3, G4, they go by V1, V2, V3, V4. The Vespers have a fighter in it. Most of the Vespers I don't really care about. Pater is I kind of love Pater because he seems like a guy who's trying his best. And then you have Snail who just oh no, like he speaks like he has a ball of phlegm in the back of his throat, and it just makes me want to grab him and choke it out of him. But the Vespers have another up-and-coming mercenary that you're kind of competing with for some of their missions, named Rusty. And Rusty is so interesting. Rusty, I have not played the DLC, to clarify. Rusty is quite possibly one of the most interesting characters I've seen in a game in a while. You kind of form this like camaraderie between yourselves, and a big part of it is based on like, they're having us do X, Y, and Z, and I'm good at it, you're good at it, let's be good together. Like, that's just the whole idea of Rusty. When he sees you, it's just like, hey buddy, how you doing? It feels very like a homie kind of bond. Now you add all these characters, and the thing is that your only interactions with them are either in pre-mission warm-ups where it's just like two Zoom icons talking to each other, or you have them talking to you during the mission, shit-talking you. The very final option is at the end of every mission, they'll kind of send you like a briefing of like, hey, you did good, way to go, man. For example, when you turn on G4 and G5 Iguazu, he is pretty quick to... he contacts you immediately after that mission, and he's just like, you got lucky, kiddo. I'm gonna come there, I'm gonna fuck your sister. Like, he's so not ready to fight. Again, he needs time to rest up because he's a pansy and you whipped him. Anyways, that type of thing is common with the game, where you get these character moments where essentially it's just JPEGs talking to JPEGs with a little MP4 going across the screen. I don't care though, it feels good, it sounds good. When you're playing the game, there have been many moments where I've like gotten the attention of my partner and I'm like, listen to this line, this is stupid. I don't really understand the core moments of the story. It's mostly because it's a FromSoft game, and I have not watched the 5-hour video by Vati Vidya. But to the best of my understanding, the way the game essentially works out near the end is you have three options. You have you can either side with handler Walter, who he's actually been wanting you to destroy the coral this whole time. His goal was originally, he was one of the scientists who were working on the coral. Then the Fire of Ibis came out, killed a lot of people, and essentially, since then they've been passing this torch of find the coral, destroy the coral, find the coral, destroy the coral, find the coral, destroy the coral. They've been passing that on for a while. And so once he gets that goal, he's pretty hell-bent on getting it figured out. Eventually, the big bad come and end up fighting. They end up finding you and capturing you, and Walter goes MIA and all this stuff. But that's just one of the endings. Where the Fires of Raven ending essentially means that you become the big bad. You become King Shit a Fuck Mountain, and you're getting ready to just lay the floor with people. You do the most anime thing I've seen in a minute, where you just take a giant ass ship and you just it into another. Essentially into a giant water tower. That's like the best way to explain it. But yeah, speaking of which, the cinematics in this game, oh my god! They're so good, they're so pretty. There are moments where it just feels like you're watching a movie. They'll tell you, get out, and you'll be going, and you can almost feel the flame of the explosion, like right on your ass, and you're like, it's just moments like that. And on top of that, being these huge mechs, you'd think like, oh yeah, slow and steady, and that's true for some of them, but you can make your mech almost anything you want. The mech that I use, I have made it red, gray, and white because I like those colors together in this, and then I decided, hey, you know what? Backward knees, and anti-air cannons for your hands, and then purple plasma launchers for your shoulders. And I like it. I think it works great. I'm enjoying it. But you can also get a fucking tank body and just slap AC right on top of it, and now nothing can move you. You're a tank. Tank logic with mech logic is just perfect logic, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of customization available, whether it's straight up stats, parts for your robo, or it's just customization. You can customize every single piece of equipment, every single piece of armor, oh my god, it's just all of it. Just a customization dream. Plus, too, they give you a crazy amount of loadouts to choose from. Not to choose from, but to save. So you can save multiple of your ACs. Maybe you have one that's really good for like boss fights. Maybe you have one that's really good for people, for other armored cores that get up close. So it has an energy sword on it, which is a thing. Those options are all there. When it comes to Armored Core 6, a large part of the philosophy is to just have fun. You don't have to think. Like I said with Vati videos, I love watching his stuff. That guy's the only reason I understand what the hell's going on in Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring. But you don't need to understand the story of those games to like the games. And just like with Soulsborne, it's the same here. You don't need to understand why mechs are fighting mechs, and there's a giant worm that just worms. You don't need to understand that. That's complicated. We don't do complicated here. We just do fun. And fun is putting anti-aircraft cannons on your arms and shooting people with them. And if that's not fun, then I don't know what is. Anyways, I've only done the Fires of Raven ending, and I already have this much love for the game. I might do another one of these videos talking about the other ending when I get to it. And then there's a third ending that you only access after you get through the first two endings. And unlike Dark Souls, where it's probably like a 50 to 80 hour commitment, depending on how like deep you want to get into each game, this game I beat in about 30 hours. I'm not the type of person to replay games, but this game is so fun. I just want to keep playing it. I want to keep seeing things blow up. I want to keep hearing people's thoughts on things and that and this. There's just so much interesting in this game. And if people want to hear more about it, I would love to talk more about it. But yeah, otherwise, I really like Armored Core 6. I think you should probably try it out, or at least just watch a video on it. Maybe one where the person is good at speaking. It's always a good start. But yeah, I definitely recommend Armored Core 6 for anybody who just wants to play a fun game and just see things explode and not have a whole reason before it of why you're doing everything. Because sometimes you don't need a why, you just need to have fun. I know this whole video is a bit of a odd thing, especially considering that I don't upload often and all that. However, I want to start changing that. I've moved into a nicer space. I am able to actually have free time and do things. So I kind of want to treat this as almost like a video diary thing. Not particularly that, I don't feel like telling the internet my secrets, but I like the idea of being able to just hop on, turn a camera on, and just blah, 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 and slapstick stuff together and upload it and have other people hear my opinions. That's kind of the plan here. So if you're interested in that, feel free to stick around.